podcasts, shows. What do we call these things? They're on YouTube. There's a visual component to it. It's also on your various podcast platforms. You know, people have always asked, what do you call this show? Well, it's called The Sheet. Yeah, but is it a video thing? Is it an audio thing? Well, it's kind of all of it. Vic, who's filling in, by the way, known as Vacation Vic on Morning Cup of Hockey, who's actually with me here for the summer series, while my normal producer is in Portugal. I gave an assignment, by the way, Vic. You'll like this one. I said, I want a full update on 3 things. I know 3 things about Portugal. You know what they are?
I know one of them.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Something about lemons.
Yeah, lemons. So I had lemon water this morning. So I want an update on lemons. I want an update on cork. And I want an update on diving dogs. Those are the 3 things. Diving dogs. Portuguese diving dogs. I want full updates. So he's got 2 weeks to come up with it. So that's the assignment for Zach Phillips, who's vacationing with his lovely better half. A couple of things quick before we get to Greg Wyshynski here. And we got a lot of normal things that we do. And what you're going to find in the summer series of shows is a little more laid back and probably more scrambly than usual. And this is a pretty scrambly show to begin with. And I'll probably make more mistakes. But that's like, it's summer, man. Like, seriously. Gavin McKenna, by the way, it looks like he's signing with Penn State. Look for that announcement, by the way, tomorrow. Jordan Schmaltz put out a tweet from Hockey Night in Scottsdale, former NHLer, former first-round draft pick. Put out a tweet saying maybe an announcement as early as today. I think it's coming tomorrow. That's Gavin McKenna officially will be ex of the Western Hockey League's Medicine Hat Tigers, joining Ryder Ritchie, who goes to BU, and also Caden Lindstrom, who goes to Michigan State. That was the team that won the Western Hockey League championship, the Ed Chenoweth Cup. You look like you want to say something.
I asked Colby on the show about if there's pressure on guys going from the CHL to the NCAA. With regards to basically, I mean, he's a lock to go first overall, and going to the NCAA, playing against tougher competition, I would say, than the WHL. Is there any more pressure on him? Could it hurt his draft stock? And the replies and the responses were disgustingly against me. They're like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But I don't mean that for generational players. I just mean that in general, Jeff, do you think there is a little more pressure, or is it more difficult? Could they hurt their draft stock by facing tougher comp?
I don't think so. I don't. I think a lot of, like, you have a look, like Matthew Schaefer played like a dozen games this year and he went first overall. Even by the time you get into your draft year, it's not, and there are some players that use that draft year and their stock rises. We look at Brady Martin, for example, who's a great example. At the beginning of the season, this past season, and he was probably ranked in the low end of the first round, maybe high end of the second round. You know, he ended up going 5th. To the Nashville Predators. But someone like Gavin McKenna, someone like Matthew Schaefer, guys like that, even if they only play a handful of games in their actual draft year, the body of work that has already been laid before everybody kind of dictates that, yeah, you know what, in a lot of ways, we've seen enough and we know enough about Gavin McKenna, and I don't think that this is going to hurt him at all. And listen, he's going to go to Penn State and help give that program a shot in the arm. There are only 2 universities that he visited. He visited Michigan State and he visited Penn State. There were Zoom calls with Denver, Zoom calls with Michigan as well. I don't know if there was a 5th. There might have been, but if there is, I'm unaware of it. But look for the official Gavin McKenna news to break tomorrow. I think that's when the announcement is planned that he's going to Penn State. So stay tuned for that. We got a lot to get to today. I want to get to a tweet right off the top too. But first of all, I want to remind you, as usual, this program is powered by FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. And coming up on the program today, kicking off the summer series of pods is my good buddy from ESPN.com, the one and only Greg Wyshynski. He will stop by. We will talk about free agency. We will talk about the CBA getting ratified, players voting, I believe, this past weekend and into this week. We will talk about the exciting world of salary arbitration and why the NHL still continues to do it this way. I think, both sides never want to get into that room because of what happens in that room, and the things that are said in that room can have effects days, weeks, months, years later? And why don't they go to a different style of arbitration? We're going to get to that in a couple of seconds. But really quick, you want to put up that tweet question that we got earlier on today? So this is an interesting one. So this is from Adam. If you think of it, can you tell the referee story about dropping the puck and I guess he wants to mean being the only sane people in the building? I want my wife to hear it, but I know I can't do it justice. Okay, so this is about Mickey Ian. So Mickey Ian was a longtime official, not just in the NHL, but also was a great lacrosse player who actually spent 10 days in jail in Toronto for kicking a player in the face when he played a lacrosse game, I want to say in like 1910 or 1912. Anyway, Mickey Ian, who was brought into British Columbia to officiate and play lacrosse by the Patrick brothers. So Mickey Ian used to have a saying. What he would do is he would bring the officials, the linesmen, to center ice, and he would hold up the puck. And he would hold this thing up. Let me get a good visual of this. This is actually Mac 30. That's my makeup. He would actually hold up the puck, and he would say, gentlemen, the one thing that we need to remember is the minute I drop this round black thing, we become the only sane people in this building, and all I have to do is drop this. And that is the great Mickey Ian story, who went into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1961. With that, we'll bring aboard. I hope that's satisfied. I hope your wife liked that. I hope I hope I did the story justice. It's about Mickey Ian. I think we have a picture of Mickey, don't we? Did you get that up, Vic? Have a picture of Mick?
Yeah.
There he is with the whistle. By the way, doesn't that look way better than what the officials wear now?
Oh, way better.
Like, I think the zebra stuff looks awful. I don't know. I'm probably the minority on that because everyone's just used to it. Look at that great look for the officials back then.
Is that a sweater? Is he wearing a...
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I put on my nicest sweater, but I got the Jeff Merrick going. I got my swim trunks on underneath here.
I know. I got my dry fit shorts too. I'm so bad.
Yeah,
I got like my Peter Mansbridge national look. Yeah, it's a great look for the old. There's Mickey Ian, the guy that would said, the minute I drop this thing, we become the only sane people in this building. All right, this next segment is brought to you by Simply Spiked. Summer is here, hanging out in the great weather with great friends. You want that feeling to last forever. But can you squeeze every drop out of summer? Yes, you can with Simply Spiked. Simply Spiked has 3 delicious flavors. There is the OG Summer Classic, Simply Spiked Lemonade. That's always a party favorite. You can try a sweet and juicy summer sip with Simply Spiked Peach, or you can check out the newest flavor in the Simply Spiked lineup, Simply Spiked Limeade. That is sweet and it is tart as well. Don't know which one you want to try? Why not try them all with the Simply Spiked Variety Packed? These juice beverages are 5% alcohol, contain real fruit juice, and are the perfect refreshing and convenient summer drink. Simply Spiked pairs perfectly with any summer occasion. That includes summer hangs, backyards, pool parties, barbecue, you name it. Simply Spiked launched in Canada in 2023 and has been bringing the juiciness ever since. Pick up Simply Spiked at your local liquor store for your next summer hangout. Must be legal drinking age. And as always, we remind you to please celebrate responsibly. Someone who always celebrates responsibly, and I believe often in the summertime as well, is our good friend from the old MVSW podcast. You love him from ESPN and ESPN.com, and you love him from this program too. He is the one and only Greg Wyshynski, who joins me now on the sheet. Wish, how are you?
The Simply Spiked read reminded me.
Well, your microphone's not working for one, so we'll start there.
Oh, well, that's not good. Here, I'll reconnect.
Maybe not. Big introduction. Listen, I warned you all about this. I prefaced today's show by saying, look, it's going to be a little more laid back and not everything is going to be perfect. Case in point, Wish's mic, which in hindsight, we probably should have tested out before the program today. But coming up with Wish, there's a number of different things we want to get to here. We want to talk about salary arbitration and the players that have either elected arbitration themselves or their clubs specifically have elected arbitration, mainly just to remove the threat of an offer sheet. And that's not just with one. Like that, we all think that, the Buffalo Sabres, have indicated they're taking Byram to club elected arbitration, and we all suspected that's because of the fear of an offer sheet. But Jack McBain as well. I think I mentioned this on our free agent show, the marathon that we did, that there are teams that would have been in the market to offer sheet Jack McBain. And this is a way for the Utah Mammoth to make sure that it doesn't get to that spot. Other players going to arbitration, they've elected Morgan Barron, Lucas Dostal, the netminder for the Anaheim Ducks. That's an interesting one. Drew Hellison, Capo Caco, Nick Robertson, Dylan Sandberg, Arvid Soderblom, Jaden Struble, Connor Timmins, Maxim Siplikov, and Gabe Velarde have all elected for arbitration. We're going to spend a lot of time as well today talking about Nikolaj Ehlers and his decision to go to Carolina. And interesting on this one, it sounds very much like, and I believe that there are other teams that would have been interested in getting in the Nick Ehlers sweepstakes. I believe the Detroit Red Wings would have been one of them. But the Washington Capitals, it sounds like the Caps went down to the wire with Ehlers as well. And what it kind of, like, I'm trying to, between conversations and gut feeling and knowing the player and knowing the teams involved here, coming down to two teams, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals, what it feels like to me is that Nick Ehlers probably wanted to go max 7 years, and Carolina was the team that offered him the most years on term. Obviously, that is 6. I'm going to guess Washington went with 5, and that's what it came down to. Carolina offered 1 extra season. The player wanted 7. I think maybe the Caps wanted 5. Maybe did they ask for 4? Not sure, but it sounds and feels very much like 4 or 5. And the Carolina Hurricanes said, look, we're not going to give you 7, but we will give you 6. And that's what it came down to. And, you know, one of the interesting things about the Carolina Hurricanes is, first of all, they take swings at big players. And we saw this with Mikko Rantanen. But even before Eric Tulsky was the general manager, going back to the Don Waddell days as well, Carolina may have a reputation of being frugal, let's just say, throwing nickels around like manhole covers. Use that cliche if you want. But when big players become available, the Carolina Hurricanes are usually, if not always, involved or interested. The owner, Tom Dundon, we've talked about plenty, and he has a way of placing a certain value on players, value on broadcasters, a value on everything in the organization that he owns, and he will not go above that. But what he does have is an appreciation for superstars and an appreciation for big-time players, not just as players, but as box office draws as well. Like, let's not forget, too, before Jack Eichel went to Vegas, the Carolina Hurricanes were in, as we found out after Jack Eichel ended up getting traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. The Carolina Hurricanes were very much there. You know, another team we should mention too that doesn't always get the headlines, because you always hear about, oh, the Maple Leafs are interested and the Rangers are getting this guy, and sure, these are big name teams. Generally, Colorado is in for a lot of these swings too. So Carolina, Colorado, two teams that don't necessarily get a lot of headlines when it comes to free agency. These are teams that are always in, and maybe the best example for the Colorado Avalanche was the offer for Artemi Panarin. Now, it wasn't as long as the Rangers were offering, and Panarin's an interesting story now with 1 year left on his deal. What's the future there with him and the New York Rangers? I believe the Avalanche offered a 3-year deal at massive money, like more than the Rangers ended up paying him. So it's not as if Colorado doesn't open up the pocketbook themselves, but just not one of those teams that gets the headlines for being involved in players that end up switching teams in free agency. CBA ratification as well. We should get into, and we'll talk about that. The players are voting on this thing. The one thing, and I'll get into this with Wish, if we ever solve his microphone issues. I appreciate you humoring me while I tap dance here. One of the things that we're looking at right now with the CBA ratification, outside of no dress code for the players, I'm really hard pressed to find many, if any, wins in this thing. And we'll wait to see the final document when it all comes out here. And maybe I'll be completely proven wrong and this will be an overwhelming win for the players. But it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't sound like that. And so far, it doesn't read like that. Right now, the NHL, and Greg made the point early, and I got to commend him for it, that by putting out the salary cap numbers for the next 3 seasons, that calmed the players down about fighting too hard in this round of negotiation. Because right now, as it looks, the NHL has just hit a home run. Like, those home runs where, like, let's say you hit it out to over the right fielder's head or the left fielder's head. It's one of those home runs where the outfielder doesn't even look at it. Like, the outfielder doesn't budge because he or she knows it's leaving the field. It's gonzo. That's what this CBA looks like right now. We've made a lot about, it's a peacetime CBA, and it's a CBA that's signed, a year in advance of the deadline for the CBA negotiations, and it doesn't even take effect until the end of next season. This one was easy to do because it doesn't look like there were any major disagreements or fights along the way, and the NHL kind of got what they wanted. Players get to play international hockey. That's great. That's good for the NHL. Like, that's good for both sides. They don't have to adhere to any type of dress code going to the rink. Okay, that's a tiny trade-off for an even more restrictive economic system that, as one, I think I mentioned this on the show last week, as one person that I know who's been a veteran, and I mean veteran, of a lot of CBA wars, of 94, 95, of 204, 205. I can't really call the pandemic one a war because that was done under stress and both sides needed to keep the game on the ice. But the 2012, like all of that, this is someone who was veteran and has intimate knowledge of all the goings on, said to me, I know we haven't seen the whole thing yet, but this feels like a CBA by ChatGPT. That's the way this one feels. I'm curious to see what Wish feels about this one. A couple of players that I'm curious about as well. Oh, by the way, one thing I did want to get to, and we'll get to in a second. Hang on, let me just communicate with Vic here as we're trying to get Wish on. Hang on. One of the things that there we go. Do we have you on?
Can
Are
you
you
hear me
working
now?
yet? You're not.
Is
working
it?
yet.
It could. No.
No, your microphone's not on. But there's something
No,
going on with your
my
microphone.
mic is fine. It's yours that's messed up.
I'm the one that my microphone doesn't work.
Your earphones don't work or something.
I can't hear you. So I'm just gonna keep on going. I'm just gonna keep on plowing through. This is great. So here's the issue. Hey, Vic, what's going on?
Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
You can hear me. The whole world hears Greg Wyshynski except for Jeff Marek. So,
are you serious?
Yeah, he's going live. He's going to air. The chat can hear him. The whole world hears Greg Wyshynski except for Jeff Marek.
Well, it's not going to be much of a conversation.
Yeah.
Not going to be much of a conversation.
We'll figure this out in the next 2 minutes. We'll get him back on. Apologies.
2 minutes?
We'll sort this out.
3:20 Eastern.
All right. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, no problem. So, one thing that I wonder if it happens quickly, because I don't think that this team wants to dither with this and wants to take care of it as soon as possible. I really do suspect that something will happen with Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. And I want to say it feels to me like it's probably going to be sooner than later, because I don't think the Dallas Stars want to drag this thing out at all. I think that Jim Nill, as the GM of the Dallas Stars, has a number in his mind and doesn't want to go over that number whatsoever, and will not go over that number whatsoever. I do think it is in the low double digits for Jason Robertson. That's where they are comfortable. Term may be an issue as well. I don't know that the Dallas Stars, as has been explained to me, have much of a desire to go long-term big money on players that aren't the best skaters in the NHL. That they feel that they've been burned by that before. So we'll see where this one goes. We might find out quickly where the Dallas Stars are on Jason Robertson. Either we'll have a contract extension announced or maybe a trade. But if there's one team that I'm really paying attention to right now, and there's another in Pittsburgh, and I want to get there in a couple of seconds, but the one team that I really want to pay attention to right now are the Dallas Stars and the situation with Jason Robertson. Let's not forget, too, that when you look for need and what the Dallas Stars need/want to do, they still want to shore up their blue line. So we will watch for the Dallas Stars and teams that may have excess defenders. I want to say that Dallas was probably, and I want to say this probably even extends back into the season as well, in the conversation for Noah Dobson, who, as we all know, of course, ended up with the Montreal Canadiens. Speaking of defenders, though, one player that is of particular curiosity for yours truly, as we kick off this summer series of shows, Erik Karlsson, now of the Pittsburgh Penguins. But now that his bonus money, I believe, has all been paid, could Erik Karlsson find himself elsewhere? And yes, I know I just mentioned the Dallas Stars want to shore up their back end. The other thing you need to consider there, too, is when Erik Karlsson was initially traded, I don't know if I think I've talked about this before. When Erik Karlsson was initially traded to the San Jose Sharks, the other team, because there were a number of teams, but the other team that was in it big time were the Dallas Stars. Before he went to San Jose, there were a lot of talks with Dallas, and there were talks that he was going to end up a Dallas Star, but I believe the whole thing broke down over one specific player. The Ottawa Senators wanted Rupe Hintz, and that was a bridge too far for the Dallas Stars. Is there still an interest in Erik Karlsson? Let's not forget, this was years and years ago. We might find out soon. The other thing, and the other team that he's always been attached to, and I can't see it happening now, are the Florida Panthers. There were years where towards the trade deadline every year, we're like, okay, Panthers are interested in Karlsson. Is this going to happen? Okay, it didn't happen at deadline. It's going to happen in the offseason. Now here we are again, and I find myself saying there was interest previous. I don't know if it's going to happen, but if he's going to move somewhere, he can maybe throw a dart there.
Marek?
Your voice is in my ears. Hey, listen, man.
Everyone can hear me, except for
everybody
you.
Except me. Everyone, I know, as the only guy, I was like sitting here kissing my mirror for a while, just filibustering and blathering on about a number of things. Welcome to the program officially, although you've already been on the program. Just
let me hit all the topics that I was going to hit. First of all, Simply Spiked reminded me of my dad, who was a member of something called Bash House when he was in college in the 1960s.
What's that? Bash House?
Well, I come to find out that it was like a quasi fraternity he was a part of. Okay. And the reason that the spiked part reminded me of it is the Bash House, the Bash and Bash House, was they would take all of the almost empty bottles of booze in their place, and they would pour it all into a trash can. And they would and that would be the punch for their parties. They called it Bash. And he used to have a T-shirt and everything for being a member of this organization.
The closest I ever got to that, when I was at university, and I went to University of Guelph, I used to hang out with the lacrosse team a lot. And great dudes, and they partied like insane. And the one thing that I would tag along with, and they would do this on the regular, I would tag along like once a month with them. And what we would do is we'd go from bar to bar to bar, and they'd play a game called Lotto 649. And Lotto 649 was this. You got to the bar, and everybody had a shot glass in front of them. And the bartender would take the 6th bottle from the left, the 4th bottle from the right, and then the 9th bottle from the left. And whatever those 3 were, that was the shot. And everyone had thrown in like $50 at the beginning of the night. And there's the shots, and last man standing, after drinking all of it, gets the entire pot. I never won.
That's so funny.
It was so gross.
That's amazing.
And no, it's
That's
gross.
amazing.
It's awful. Like I can't. Like you think back to like all the stupid things you did when you were a kid. That was one of the dumbest. Man, I drank like some awful stuff, and no, I never won the whole prize. Unlike my buddy Matty. Every time my buddy Matty's Super Bowl and Grey Cup party tradition.
No.
Okay, how about this one? So he does this for Super Bowl and he does it for Grey Cup as well. I don't know if they still do it for both because this has been going on for like 15 years and this is like going to lead to some severe health problems. So what he would do is him and his brother would host Super Bowl parties and they'd put out the big spread, chicken wings and nachos and chips and beer, like chili, the usual stuff, okay? Mm-hmm. And what everybody would do, and there's about 15 guys, they'd all throw in $100 and they would all weigh themselves before kickoff. And at kickoff, they would all start eating. And then at the end of the game, they'd all get back on the scale. And whoever put on the most weight got the whole pot. $1,500. But these guys were like, they all had like a strategy for how to do it, like what to eat and not eat the day before, what they, how they would prime before they would paint, what they would have in the morning leading up to the Super Bowl. Oh yeah, like some guys had this down to like a science wish. I'm not sure what the record was for a single game, but I seem to have like the number 11, like 11 pounds put on in like one single game, which just has to be just awful for you, but
They should run the Nathan's hot dog eating contest the same way. Is they just weigh people ahead of time and then weigh them after. Which reminds me, I wanted to share this fact with you.
Uh-oh.
Joey Chestnut, the Wayne Gretzky of competitive eating.
Yeah.
And by the way, my favorite tidbit about competitive eating I picked up from MTV's Real Life I'm a Competitive Eater, which is to expand their stomachs before competitions.
That's what one of Maddie's buddies was saying. Yeah, same thing.
They eat heads of iceberg lettuce the night before.
There's way.
No caloric intake. It's all water, basically. And so they eat a bunch of heads of iceberg lettuce to expand their stomachs the night before. But here's the thing I wanted to mention to you. Okay. Do they have Twinkies in Canada, Marek?
Yes, they do have. Yeah, we do have, Twinkies. We also have color television now, too, surprisingly, from coast to coast. Yeah.
Joey Chestnut holds the record for the most Twinkies consumed in 6 minutes. Would you like to hazard a guess how many Twinkies Joey Chestnut ate in 6 minutes?
In 6 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
100.
Chat, this is for you too. You can throw your answers out.
100. 100 in 6 minutes. Those things go down like nothing.
That's a big round number you've given.
Yeah.
I don't know if the chat's taking the over.
Hang on.
Congratulations if you did. 121 Twinkies in 6 minutes for Joey Chestnut. Wow. The Gretzky of competitive eating, they call him.
What could you eat the most of? What could you eat the most of?
That's funny. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day while we were watching the hot dog eating contest.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I eat the most of without really being cognizant of it is pizza, because if there's just a pizza there, it's my favorite food, so I just keep numbing it.
Yeah.
I wonder how many White Castle sliders I could put down in like 20 minutes if tasked. They're small, they're compact. I know I've polished off a bag or two in my life.
Yeah.
I wonder if tasked how many I could put down.
Okay, so my knowledge of White Castle is embarrassingly limited.
They're sliders.
No, I know, I get it. But what is on them? Do they come standard like every one of them has ketchup,
cheese,
mustard,
fried onions, and like a squirt of ketchup? Yeah, that's
squirt of ketchup.
The cheese, fried onion, squirt of ketchup.
I don't know. I don't know that I have like a White Castle sliders in my life that I could eat a ton of. But off the top of my head,
weed brownies.
Yeah, but I would park it after a while. I'd have to tap out on that. I can't do edibles anymore, man. I can't. I've had too many bad experiences. I've had too many bad experiences. I can't. I'm scared. I've had my life where I'm scared of edibles now. I can't do it.
The problem for me is the edible I really like was only available in California. It was a gummy, and their brand is available in New York legally. Might I add?
Thank you. But all in the up and up, everybody.
The one I could take and then function and not be like sleepy is not available here, and I'm so bummed. Gavin McKenna.
By the way, I know what it is. I know what I could eat the most of.
What's that?
Jalapeno peppers.
What?
Yeah. I'll sit and I'll eat like entire jars.
Like, so like slices, not like seeds and all.
No. Okay. The slices. Yeah. No, I'm not psychotic, but just like I'll
how many do you think you could put down?
I don't know. Like I could like. I've done it before. I've just like started firing them off and just sitting there like watching a movie. Like on the weekend, like Saturday night, I did like a small jar watching No Country for Old Men, which I watch every year at the beginning of the summer. I just love it, and it's my own little tradition. I love the book too, and just ate like an entire jar of jalapenos.
That summer kickoff movie, No Country for Old Men. We're all watching Jaws. We're all watching some beach party movie, and you're like, let me go see Anton Chigurh go use the cattle the cattle brainer on unsuspecting people. So as others would eat chips or pretzels,
correct,
you would
jalapenos.
eat jalapeno slices.
Yeah.
But pickled, right? Like out of the jar.
Pickled, yeah, out of a jar, yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
That's what I like. That's my jam. Now,
how cognizant are friends of yours about this? Like when you go to the Super Bowl party, there we have to have Jeffy's jalapeno slices.
You know what I always get?
I
always get like you can have my celery and my carrots. That's what I always get. I'm treated like a rabbit. That's what I get.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's wild.
True.
Gavin McKenna. So
go for it. I think tomorrow's going to be announced. I think so. Yeah.
And I think it's going to be pretty blown out too. Like kind of like not just a press release, but a bigger thing than a press release. If you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I think this is a huge moment. Like I'm really fascinated. I'm kind of interested in talking to some people that I know around the NCAA about what their thoughts are on this, because I haven't really explored it too much because I wasn't sure which way he was going to go until recently. What does it mean for Michigan State to lose out on a player like this? What does it mean for Penn State that made the Frozen Four for the first time to get a player like this? What does it mean for? Is this the first moment in the NIL era in which we are like, oh my God, the implications of this are enormous insofar as the NCAA attracting hockey talent?
Yep.
What does it mean for Canadian Junior to not get this guy? Like I feel like this is going to be one where we're going to roll it around in our mouths for a few months before we really get a handle on what this means, because this is a seismic moment for college hockey.
All of the early day, like this is all early days in this new development reality. Yeah, and eventually it's all going to settle into whatever it is that it's going to become. But right now, everything is going to seem that much more magnified. And make no mistake about it, like you're right, like this is massive, right? This is like next year's consensus first overall draft pick is going to be announced as from Penn State. Now, the one thing that I was told this year, right around Christmas time, or is it January, but maybe when the calendar flipped, was to watch Penn State. Because what they really want to do, and making it to the Frozen Four was massive for that program, but what they really want to do is they need to start, they really want/need to start graduating legitimate long-term superstar NHLers into the National Hockey League. And this goes a long way to that. And it is the sort of credibility shot in the arm that Penn State has probably always wanted. And I think this is probably the beginning of more players going to Penn State. Now, as someone in college hockey told me a few weeks ago, it's really rare for 17-year-olds to come in and dominate and have a significant, profound effect on a program. Certainly, it might act as a drawing card or a nice piece of marketing for Penn State. And make no mistake about it, they're getting an excellent player. But I always defer to like people that have been in college hockey for a long time, and I always wonder, like, okay, so these are you're playing against older players, you're playing against grown-ups here. It's really hard in CHL to do that, let alone playing against young men here. Right. So I don't know, like, if there's much of a track record for 17-year-olds having that much of a profound effect in NCAA Division I hockey.
But I don't think profound effect is. I think first of all, you nailed it before. Where it really doesn't matter what he does in the NCAA. We know what he is, and we know where he's going in the draft. But usually, when you see younger players overseas, especially in Sweden, play well above their age bracket, it doesn't really matter like what they do. It's just it's by virtue of having played
They're
against
hanging there.
that
They're
competition.
Yeah.
They're hanging. They know what it means. It's gonna help ease them into an NHL existence in a way that other preparatory leagues won't. And so he might get the shit beat out of him. Who knows? But like he's still gonna have that experience of playing against older players. That's a really good point about Penn State, and I didn't think about it in those terms because. Obviously, the Pagulas have thrown a ton of money into Penn State, right?
Yeah.
And
I was told war chest. I was told like a few months ago they have a war chest. Watch Penn State.
Right. So they have great facilities. They have amazing funding. The program is top of the pops as far as like having the money behind it. They make the Frozen Four last year, but like you said, the real difference between a program on the come up and your Michigans and your Boston universities and your Boston colleges is how many of the top 50 players in the NHL draft have that school next to their names, and this is going to be the first one. And you're right. So like it's not only a sea change moment in a player like that choosing a school like Penn State, but it's also a sea change moment in Penn State getting a player like that and being being in the spotlight in a way that program has never even come close to being in before. So it's if you're like the Michigan schools and everybody else, Wisconsin, Minnesota, you're like, Jesus, really? I got to worry about Penn State too.
I got to worry about Penn State now.
You're gonna have to.
Hang on. Wish. Those programs are going to be fine. Those programs are going to be okay.
You just want the ease of competition. It's a real fun moment. I'm excited to see the fanfare of it all, and obviously like a kid like that coming to play in the NCAA is pretty dope. By the way, it also positions him, and this might be why he picked Penn State. He'll be able to get used to the Penguins. Like he'll be able to kind of like be closer to their facilities and maybe meet some of the players, some of his future teammates. Like it'll give Gavin a chance to really kind of integrate himself into his next NHL team. The Penguins.
So it's funny you mentioned that too, because I was wondering if the Sabres are just going to tank it to get the Penn State guy for Terry.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of the wills.
The Sabres versus the Penguins for Gavin McKenna.
The Sabres tank to get Pagula's kid, or Mario buys the Penguins again, therefore guaranteeing that they win the first overall pick when they tank. It's two forces battling against each other. I don't know who's going to win out.
Have you ever thought about? It's funny. I think I've talked to you about this before. Someone told me years ago. Just mentioned this casually in passing in the middle of a conversation. I'm sure you have thought about. Okay, whenever it's done for Sidney Crosby, whenever Sidney Crosby retires, what's he going to do next? Someone mentioned to me just casually, and it's always stuck in the back of my mind. They said, "You know what? I can see Sidney Crosby running Penn State, running hockey for Penn State." You want to talk about furthering? And again, this is just like we're on this. It's July 7th. Me and Wish are shooting the shit. This is not a report. This is not me saying this is going to happen. I just remember this one conversation with someone saying, I could see Crosby doing that. Stays in Pennsylvania. He's a hero. Penn State probably pay him handsomely to do that. Becomes incredible for recruiting. I don't know. Like right now, this could be the beginning of something just absolutely massive for Penn State.
Well,
so why not go carried away with it?
Let's shift the gear down for a second, because like here's the other part of it too. Let's say the Penguins trade away Russ, they trade away Raquel, they trade away Carlson. They successfully tank this year. They end up with McKenna. We all pretty much figure that Crosby's out after Malkin's out, which is after next season. What if you have McKenna there? Like, would that increase the chances of Sid sticking around and retiring as a Penguin, as a guy who not only will have the top player in the draft on his team, but maybe sees that as an opportunity to, mentor the future? Doing a little Canadian national team Celebrinis in my locker room. I want to take him under my wing situation.
Hang on. And so then he becomes the Mario that Mario was to Crosby.
Did exactly.
To which I have still, and I've been on this one forever, I've never been given a satisfactory explanation why that didn't count as cap circumvention by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Having Sidney Crosby live in the owner's mansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember asking someone in the NHL that once, and this person said to me, well, Malkin lives at Gonchars. And I was like, something a little bit different than living at the lavish, the mansion of luxury that is Mario Lemieux's palace.
Instead
something
of a
little
cot,
different.
Instead of a cot in Mario's wine cellar, it'll be a cot for McKenna inside of Crosby's military history artifact room. A bunch of stuff behind glass, old revolvers. That's where he'll sleep.
But but you know what? Just to dovetail it to another conversation, I find the Crosby thing fascinating here because here's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out something about Sidney Crosby, and to me, it's really fascinating. I don't know if it is to you or not, but we're about to find out something really interesting about Sidney Crosby, and that is this: what's more important to Sidney Crosby, competition or loyalty? Because that's it. That's what we're talking about here. Because Kyle Dubas is not going to approach Sidney Crosby or his agent Pat Brisson and say, is your client interested in a trade? Would your client be interested in going somewhere else? Right. Dubas is not going to do that. If anything is going to happen here, this will need to be instigated by Crosby and CAA. That's the way this thing is going to go. And as competitive as Crosby is, he's also fiercely loyal too. So we're about to see here, as the Pittsburgh Penguins continue this rebuild, what's more important to him. And there's no right answer. If he stays, I understand it. If he goes, I understand that too. But we're just going to figure out here what's more important to him. Loyalty or competition.
What do you think the odds are that Dubas already knows what Sid's going to be up to in the next 2 years?
I don't know, because I don't know that he's had that conversation with either Pat Brisson or Sidney Crosby himself. I don't know, but I think like listen, plenty of Canadians specifically watching the Four Nations last year where it came to the same conclusion. It's great seeing Sidney Crosby in a competitive game, in a competitive tournament. Like, oh man, we would love to see this in the NHL. Why doesn't Crosby go somewhere else? And then it turns into, well, why don't the Pittsburgh Penguins just trade Sidney Crosby and get him to Colorado to play with Nathan McKinnon? And then you have the conversation about he's loyal and he wants to retire as a Pittsburgh Penguin. He doesn't want his hockey DB to be Pittsburgh, Colorado. Like, he doesn't want like the Mike Modano hockey DB. What do you think?
I think I've long believed that he'll end his career in Montreal.
That's a whopper of one. And especially now that they're on.
But don't you think that's like, if you're going to, I know everybody just, paints the Cole Harbor, thing with him and Nate. And I'm sure Colorado is going to be relevant by the time he's ready to leave, like next summer in theory. But if he's going to go anywhere and he's going to try to do something spectacular, like being part of the legacy and lineage of the Montreal Canadiens and being on a team that's got upward trajectory and having a chance to, maybe LeBron his way to a late career championship for a team that hasn't won since '93, a team he clearly has a lot of affinity for. Like, I don't know, man. I always assumed that if it wasn't Pittsburgh, it was going to be Montreal, and that's kind of where I'm at right now with it. The Colorado thing is sort of like a pipe dream, I think in a lot of ways. Like, why the hell would Sid want to go west at this point in his career?
Okay, let me throw another thing out at you then. I'll throw this log on the fire here. 1984 NHL draft, 12th round, 240th overall pick. The Montreal Canadiens select who?
Who?
Troy Crosby.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
That just makes you more smug and self-righteous about the whole. I told you. It goes back to 84. Last pick of the draft for them.
He's going to play in Montreal. Like, I think we all assume it's going to be one of those two places if he leaves.
Colorado or Montreal.
Throws a curveball at us. Like, listen, the ultimate curveball would be like, Ovi signs for another year after the next year, and then it's Sid and Ovi for their last seasons together, which would be the greatest thing. We've talked about this on the show.
I know.
Like, we've discussed this on the show before. The idea that it'd be the greatest thing ever to have those two together. But I don't know, man. Like, listen, I want him to retire a Penguin. Like, that'd be the best. But I'm not going to, I've heard too many people that kind of know him and know the situation tell me that he's there as long as Gino's there. And so if Gino's there for one more year, which it could entirely be that, then all bets are off as far as where Sid's going to end up.
How about if Ovechkin stays one more year and Gino goes to Washington?
How about all three of them go to Washington, man? Just make it an early aughts nostalgia party.
Total nostalgia
the old
party.
guys still got it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
They're all like, we don't need you Ehlers. We got Sid and Gino coming in.
Does that, by the way, I was mentioning
this
this off the top of the show while you were trying to get into my ears. It felt very much like Ehlers wanted 7 and Carolina was the only team that was prepared to go 6. Even though Washington was in it, that the issue wasn't the money, the issue was the term. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah. The thing that was kind of weird for me about the Ehlers situation is that when I was covering the Stanley Cup final, I heard from multiple people that it was going to be Carolina that ended up with him. Now, some of that was kind of contingent on them not getting Marner, which they obviously didn't end up getting Marner. But there was a notion, and I cautioned the people who told me this. I'm like, you're not just saying this because Freddie Anderson's there, right? Like, you're not just doing the one day and we'll be gravitationally pulled to the other day, and they're like, no, they're just like I think his style fits with what they do. He probably sees what Natchez did with that team. He knows he could do that and then also be more consistent than Natchez ever was. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of destiny that he was going to end up there. I was confused why he took a few beats in between July 1st and making his decision. I guess it's just because the landscape was what it was and he wanted to make sure that every box was checked. But everything I heard was he was going to end up in Carolina anyway. I think it's a real good fit. His injury history scares the hell out of me. Someone was asking me the other day, what will Winnipeg do without Nick Ehlers? I'm like, well, pretty much whatever they do when he's not there, which is a lot of the time. But I think for what he does, it's a great addition. And I agree with, you might've said this, I think off the top when I was, trying to get in your ears was the idea that the Carolinas had a really, really strong offseason so far. I mean, the Keandre Miller thing for what they had to give up for him.
Yep.
I think, if he can, he's a tricky one because I think defensemen thrive in Rod's system. Keandre's got a hell of a ceiling, but there's a lot of things in his game that need to get cleaned up details wise and consistency wise. And maybe that happens there. I think there's probably a notion of, we fixed Brady Shea and this guy's a hell of a lot better than Brady Shea. Yeah. And so it's good to get him. And then the Ehlers thing just made too much sense insofar as what they were lacking. Would they rather have Ehlers over Natchez? I think they would. Based on how I know they felt about Natchez at times. Would they like to have Rantanen over Ehlers? Of course they would, but he doesn't want to live in Raleigh. So you get a guy who wants to be there. You get a guy who's great offensively. You get a guy who fits into your system really well.
That leads me to one of the things that I was hoping to get the time to have a conversation with you about too. This is the, I don't know what the exact day was, but now this is the 1 year anniversary-ish, 1 year-ish anniversary of Eric Tulsky is the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. And, Don Waddell to Eric Tulsky, and Tulsky was always there as an assistant general manager, had interviewed for GM jobs elsewhere, but he got the Carolina gig. After 1 year, what are your thoughts on Tulsky as GM? Because there are a lot of as you well know, there are a lot of old school people that thought this was a ridiculous move by the Carolina Hurricanes. It's not a ridiculous move. I think he's been brilliant.
I think he's done it.
I think he's been brilliant.
Well,
he has. Look what he's turned in. Nate just wanted out was a declining at, like, he's going to be defined by the whole Natchez Rantanen situation, and he turned it into a major positive.
He pulled the nose up on a mistake. Listen, we both love Eric, and we both know Eric. I got all the respect. I got all the time for him. I think he's probably going to win a Stanley Cup at some point because I think he's a great manager. But he pulled the nose up on a mistake. He acquired a player that he was convinced was either going to change his mind about a situation or become enamored with the Finns that were on the roster. I don't know what the hell he was expecting, but he acquired a player that ultimately was not the long-term solution to an ongoing problem that he thought it was going to be. And again, he pulled the nose up. He got Stankoven, who's really solid. He got a lot of other assets. He did the smart thing as a manager. And I guess the other side of it would have been like keeping him and hoping that you could make the best of it in the playoffs. But as we saw against Florida, I think Eric knew that the roster wasn't probably overall good enough to beat the Panthers quite yet. So he did the smart thing and not doubling down on a mistake. Here's and I think he fouled it off. He didn't miss, but he fouled it off.
Yeah. Here's what I wonder about though. How many other managers would have made the exact same save that Tulsky did?
They would. That's my point. I think a lot of other managers have been like, we went in deep to try to get this guy to do the thing that we need, which is to score in the playoffs. And by God, we're going to keep him on the roster. It doesn't matter if we lose him for nothing. We're going to take our best shot this season. And I think he's smart enough and savvy enough to know our best days are probably still ahead of us. And we were signing this guy for the long term, not just for a 1-year solution. Mm-hmm. Just like Gensel was not supposed to just be a 1-year solution. They wanted to keep him. In both cases, it didn't happen. But again, like that's what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that you can call him, an A+ success when the Rantanen thing went sideways like it did. But I think you can call him an A- success for the way that he pulled the nose up on it. Is that fair to say?
It is, but the whole thing, I look at it as, again, like you can couch it whichever way you want. He took a big swing at a player, which was a message to the marketplace. And I don't know who ultimately made the decision for Mikko Rantanen, whether it was Rantanen himself, someone around him, I don't know, that he wasn't going to stay there long term. The fact that he had that asset and turned it into what he turned it into, and if you look at the entirety of the deal, when that deal was made, it was Drury and Natchez in essentially exchange for Stankoven, Taylor Hall, 2 first-round picks, and $6 million worth of cap space. And if I told you at the beginning of the year Eric Tulsky was going to make that trade, you would have been like, well, Jim Nill's not going to be GM of the year for the 3rd time in a row.
I love playing that game too of the equivalency of what the trade ended up.
Yeah.
Especially when you can now you can look
and
back
then it extended with
Keandre
Miller.
This and this.
Then it extended with Keandre Miller.
But it's not how it works. He traded for Mikko Rantanen to have Mikko Rantanen on his roster for the next several seasons to be the playoff force that we all saw him be for the Dallas Stars. Like Again, I'm not disagreeing with you that he made a good thing out of a weird situation, but the situation was to get Mikko Rantanen on your team and get him signed and have him be there and have him be the solution you've been looking for. As it stands, like all of those assets they got back, they're great, but they don't solve the basic problem for this team over multiple seasons, which is who's going to score a goal when you need it in the playoffs. They don't have that still.
Okay, park that. We'll have plenty of time to debate the Rantanen deal, which is probably one of those deals that we're going to be debating forever.
But I'll just say one thing on Carolina to finish it off. Again, like Keandre Miller and now a full season of Nikishin, and you jettison Burns and Orlov. Even there, that's a gigantic win for the Carolina Hurricanes based on what we saw last season in the playoffs.
Big winner in free agency, by the way, is Orlov. You watched him play plenty. Did you think for 1 second he was getting... It should have been so obvious, too, because you saw how the San Jose Sharks just, stripped this thing down, and they're like, okay, now we have to make the cap floor, and someone's going to be the big beneficiary of it. Enter Dmitry Orlov. He is the big winner on free agency this year. I don't think anybody thought that guy was getting that number. Good. Listen, good for him. Good for him.
Yep.
He got it.
Yep.
And I don't think anyone who watched him play last year said that guy's getting that number, but he did.
It's like having a friend who had a bunch of gift cards to a restaurant, and they just invite you to come along because they got money to burn. The Sharks had money to burn. They just needed to spend some money, and you happen to be on the market.
Got to get to the floor.
I mean, look, he's a serviceable player. He was just an atrocity in the playoffs for them. But again, when you're the Sharks, guy doesn't play well in the playoffs. who gives a shit?
Like,
it's not going to be a concern for you
don't need you
at
for
all.
Playoffs. Yeah. Mid-April, you peace out. Go back home. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was a great bit of business.
One thing I wanted to mention, and because listen, arbitration is now a big deal once again after the weekend, and club elected, player elected. What's going to happen with Jack McBain, who I believe was going to be a target for offer sheets, much like Byram was most likely going to be a target for offer sheets. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I think that Ryan McLeod in Buffalo was going to be a target for offer sheets before he signed his deal with the Sabres. But one of the things that I've always wondered about, because the way that arbitration works in the NHL is both sides go in and present their case, and the arbitrator arbitrarily decides what the number is going to be based on the arguments. Hence, that's why the person is called an arbitrator. I like the baseball style, which makes a lot more sense. And the way that works is both sides come in with a number, and the arbitrator picks which one he or she feels is closer to what that player should be compensated. That way, no one's coming in too high. No one's trying to hit the home run. Everyone's coming in with an idea of what is fair, even though I hate that word, fair for that player. Managers hate arbitration. Players hate arbitration. They hate what happens afterwards, after they tear each other apart in that room for a few hours. Does no good for anyone. I'm still stunned that the NHL and the Players Association haven't gotten together and said, listen, we need to change the way arbitration is done. The way that baseball does it to me is much more sane, and you don't get the lingering effects. You don't get Mike Milbury making Tommy Salo cry. You don't get Brian Burke referring to Brendan Morrison as the mouse on the elephant. Like, you don't get moments like that in arbitration when both sides are coming in with one number each. You have a thought on that one?
I do, which is that I think you're discounting how widely understood it is that this process is crushing for those involved in it. Like, the players don't want to go to it because they don't want to hear people that they generally like tell them that they suck. But I think what you're missing is the unpopularity of that facet of arbitration is a pressure point that helps people get deals done before you get to that spot.
Oh yeah,
and
a lot of them are done in the lobby.
The Byram thing right now to me is much more about trying to put a deadline on this thing than it is anything else. And insofar as putting a little pressure on both sides to see what they end up wanting to do contractually and then also transactionally. But to me, it's like the arbitration process for the NHL has long been a way to just be like, all right, sit on the pot or get off. And I think that's because of the nature of how brutal it is.
We get time for a couple of more here quickly. Let me see what. Oh, you know what I was mentioning off the top before you got in my ears?
Yes,
I think
sir.
the Jason Robertson thing is going to be settled soon. I don't think that the Dallas Stars want this.
Contract?
It's either going to be a contract or a trade. I think that Jim Nill has a
when
number in his head.
When we saw each other during the Cup final, you were convinced he was on the way out. How are you on that now?
I think that Dallas has a number in their mind, and if they don't get that number, then I think we're probably looking at a trade. That's what I believe.
Here's where I am on that. I listen. I think he's.
Let's not forget too. By the way,
player.
the last negotiation wasn't an easy one, and I don't know that Jim Nill wants to go through that again.
I think he adds something valuable offensively, although it's inconsistent sometimes. But I also think that when you look at that team, they need a defenseman who is of a high caliber.
Yes.
And they don't have a lot of options insofar to how to acquire that player. And I think Jason Robertson is one of the. Let me ask you this, because I've seen this guy's name out there a bunch. Robertson for Dougie Hamilton?
It's funny because we had someone in the chat ask about your thoughts on the Dougie Hamilton rumors and all the Dougie Hamilton talk.
My first thought of the Dougie Hamilton rumors is that my daughter is going to be crushed because she has a Dougie Hamilton autographed breast cancer awareness jersey that is like a prized possession. I think she's a big Dougie fan, and so I've yet to talk to her. She's very active on like the Instagram hockey rumor stuff, so I'm sure she's seen it by now.
Yeah.
I always assume that when the Devils cut ties with Dougie, it would be in service of acquiring Quinn. Like both of those things could not coexist on the roster at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure why they shop him now. I think when he's healthy, he's still one of the top 15 defensemen in the NHL. But there's enough smoke there that, well, I should say this. When we start talking about some of these guys, I caution whether it is gauging the marketplace versus actively shopping. Jordan Kyrou, to me, was gauging the marketplace. I don't think the St. Louis Blues were in any hurry to be like, we got to trade Jordan Kyrou, or else they would have before his contract clause kicked in. I think they were trying to figure out what they could get for him. I think the Devils might be doing the same thing with Dougie Hamilton at this point. But for me, like, if the end game is to unite the Hughes Triforce in New Jersey, Dougie Hamilton was not going to be on the roster when that happened. And so I'm not trying to get anybody's hopes up, but I always figured that one had to do with the other.
The only thing is that I don't know that the Dallas Stars are in a position to take on that much salary.
They're probably
not for that player. That's why, you know what? Honestly, what I wonder, and again, this is summer series of podcasts. Me and Wish throwing it up against the wall, seeing what sticks here. Pick one of the young defenders from Anaheim. Like if you're the Dallas Stars,
and send Robertson out there for scoring on the wing because they need it. Yeah, that's
for scoring, and say like, look, Pat, you want this? Man, Jackson Lacombe, has he been to Texas before?
Oh my God. I'd make that trade, wouldn't you, if you were Jim Nill?
I love
Robertson. You make.
I love Jackson Lacombe. I think this guy is an incredible defender. I love him. So yeah, if I'm Jim Nill, yes, I do.
But you could get more than that from Anaheim, couldn't you?
Exactly, you could. And
you pull McTavish out of there,
and still, yeah. Listen, I think that when you look at players that are like ready to have, because it used to take, remember in the 80s, what was the rule, Wish? It was like 80s into 90s was like guys didn't pop until their fourth year. And then when they pop, like when you got to get them into like 3 years of the NHL, and then they'll really explode. And it's not 4 anymore. And it's all different for different players. But man, I still do get the feeling this guy is just ready to start having massive seasons.
If I was like, could you grab Mason McTavish and then put him with Jamie Benn and just be like, make him his Padawan learner. Teach me your ways, Jamie Benn. Like, my God.
How did you cross-check that guy in the jaw? Can you show me how to do that, Jamie?
Teach me the ways. He's not had anybody on Anaheim to teach him to maximize his Jedi powers yet. I bet Jamie Benn could do so. I like Robertson a lot, and I do wonder ultimately if you could trade him to enhance your defense core in a way that's going to make you bring you back to true contender status, I'm fine with it. But ultimately, that's a lot of goals to be trading away.
It is a lot of goals. Absolutely, it is. That's why, to be honest with you, I know they use it to get Mikko Rantanen. I thought the one young player that they were not going to get rid of was Logan Stankoven. I thought that they would jettison Bork. I wondered if they would have, put Leon Bichelle in that deal as well to try to get him. I was stunned. That it was Logan Stankoven. For more than just hockey reasons. That one's, I know, but that one's like a really cool
shit, man. Like when other teams are offering Mitch Marner in the deal, right? You got to probably ante up pretty good to get the guy you want, don't you?
Yeah, that's probably true. And as that damn double C in the chat says, do you trade him to the Leafs for Morgan Rielly to reunite Jason and Nick Robertson, or do you move him to Anaheim and then Anaheim makes a move for Nick Robertson?
Trade Dougie to Toronto for Morgan Rielly?
No, I think the idea was
trade Robertson for Morgan Rielly?
Jason Robertson.
Oh! I completely. I'm sorry, I got confused with what you were talking about. Yeah, no. Sure. I mean, I always assumed if the Leafs were going to move Rielly, it'd be like defenseman for defenseman kind of trade for some reason. I don't know why I had that in my head.
It's the Rielly thing is interesting with Toronto because it became really obvious really fast that the one thing that Morgan Rielly is sort of known for, and the one part of his game that really makes him Morgan Rielly, is galloping with the puck in his own zone. And Craig Berube wants his defenseman around the net, and that's just like that's not Morgan Rielly. It's not a fit. And you saw it. Like he had a really tough season for the Maple Leafs.
Video, if it's video poker and I'm playing Maple Leafs video poker, I hold Matthews and I hold Nyes and I hold Nylander and then I reshuffle the deck. But that was before they went out and bought back, Tavares and did some of the other things they've done. Not saying it's a bad offseason, just not the direction I would have gone necessarily.
Before I let you go, and I got to get on with my day as well, and people have things to do here, either in the chat or listening or watching. What's spicing your chili these days? Like, what are you focusing on right now? Here we are, July 7th. This show is going to continue. We're going to go through the summer, but like, what's doing it for you right now?
It will continue. I'll be on a bunch this summer. I want to apologize for my camera. I had to re-download some software, and I didn't have the "Don't follow" Wish as he moves his head around button. And so there may have been a couple of moments in which the camera did some crazy David Finchery moves, and I didn't necessarily want it to do that, so I apologize for that. Secondly, what's the spice of my chili is the CBA right now. You talked about it off the top of the show. Like we don't have the completed document quite yet. We kind of know what's in it, but we don't know the all the I's dotted and T's crossed.
What do the players get?
They get whatever is given to them. Because again, like you mentioned off the top, like my feeling on giving away the salary cap numbers, and it's to keep them complacent and to keep them not angry. They're happy they get an increased cap. They're happy with the system right now. They get to keep going to the Olympics and get other international tournaments. Like they do get some things that they're interested in, but ultimately I want to know where the reduction in salary, in contract term came from. I assume it's the players being okay with it only being 6 years as a free agent to encourage more movement. But all I know, Marek, is that most of the times these guys sign, it's for 8. It's because they want to be where they are. And so I'm a little confused by that. There's other things in the deal that we know about that I'm interested to see from the players' perspective why they wanted to do this. Yeah. But I'll wait until we know the full freight of the thing until we can start asking those
I'll
questions.
Be curious and when that finally comes out, I'll be curious as well. But in the meantime, have you ever heard anybody, team side, player side, complain about third parties in trades holding money? Where does that one come from? Like, honestly,
it probably comes from
does that come from?
Don't you think that comes from the league?
I do, but who's ever beefed about it? Normally, it's a reflection of like, oh, Chicago's pissed that someone keeps doing this. When have you ever looked at that and said that's a problem? If anything, it facilitates more trade. It facilitates trades.
I think the LTIR thing is a league-driven thing too. I don't think teams care. I mean, some teams might care about like when you lose to the Panthers, or you lose to Vegas, and you're salty about it the next year. But ultimately, this is a tool in the tool chest that I think all these guys would like to use when their time comes. I think much like the league's driven the LTIR conversation, and Ron Hainsey basically confirmed it. He basically said when we talked to him in Edmonton during the Cup final, he basically said that this was a big issue for the NHL in negotiations. And so much like the LTIR thing, I think is driven by the league more than the owners. I think that the third party salary cap sharing thing is also probably league driven, either to uncomplicate things or because they kind of see it as maybe a sneaky way around cap compliance. But again, we don't know for sure. I'm speculating here, I should say.
We talked about Gavin McKenna to kick off this conversation officially. Players gave up a lot of control for players. 22 years old. That's a lot of... How many years, like every single draft, how many years did the players surrender here if they're controlled by their team to sign contracts for as many as 4 years? For everybody. Yeah. That's a ton. That's massive. Until a player can actually take himself to market.
Well, again, like that's the genius of Bettman right now, and the owner's side.
Here's what
they have so much that they can offer these guys that is going right, and on top of that, expanded international calendar, the Olympics, yada yada yada. The cap is going up the $70 billion in year 3. Like they don't have the spine to fight for any of this stuff, so they're just going to sign off on it.
And that's just it. Maybe I'm just so used to the fight. Maybe I'm just used to the argument that maybe I'm pissed off that the PA hasn't done it. Because honestly, I'm just used to the scraps. Like from 94 on, I'm just used to the fights.
It's because it's not only you and I are old enough to remember 94 on, you and I are old enough to remember Chris Chelios maybe getting the FBI called on him at some point for the stuff he said about Gary Bettman.
That was tough, man.
Also,
even at the time,
we're also old enough to remember the labor movement writ large. I mean, it's not as if the players union is the only union that doesn't put up a fight anymore.
No,
I mean, we certainly remember the 70s and the 80s and even before that, as far as like what labor unions used to do and the sacrifices they made to pave the way for what's come after it. I grew up in a union house. My dad was an electrician in New York City. This guy, he definitely participated in strikes and all sorts of things to make sure that not only him and his kids, but the people that came after him were taken care of. Yeah. There's no fight in this dog right now when it comes to the players union.
Here's what I thought when I saw the, up to the age of 22 retaining players' rights after they get drafted. I wondered if, and kind of hoped, that the Players Association would push back and say, okay, then the draft's only 2 rounds.
That's great.
And everybody's a free agent. You want 4 years for all the top dogs to sign? Okay, then the draft is 2 rounds.
I like that.
Or 3 rounds. Tops.
At least three rounds, maybe. You can get 3.
Yeah, I did 2 rounds on the Saturday. The first round, so 3 rounds. Yeah.
Oh, God, I just realized we haven't. I don't think we've spoken since the draft.
But I know. Well, listen, it's a one and done. That thing went Broadway fast. And for everyone who said that the commissioner was going to go out of his way, well, one, to remind everybody this wasn't his idea, and was going to go out of his way just to show what a bad idea it was, mission accomplished.
That was my theory. I'll stand by it because that was a real rubbing the puppy's nose in the mess it made and being like, "Don't do this again."
Don't do this again. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I love a lot what the NHL does. I wasn't too enamored with, let's take the most awkward young athletes and put them in a Zoom meeting with the most uncharismatic people in hockey.
That was a really tough one.
But I don't think we talked since I was at the Islanders draft party. That was a smart idea. That draft party was lit.
Okay, can we just mention one thing? Right now, the New York I can't believe I'm saying this. The New York Islanders are freaking killing it. Honestly, the New York Islanders are so fascinating right now. They're nailing it like at not just like at the Islanders level, but the American Hockey League level too. You look at all the signings they made that weren't for the NHL, but they're for the American League too, for Rocky Thompson. Like Matthew Darche has come in and like a really short amount of time has already put like a major stamp on this thing. Honestly, I'm super impressed with the Islanders.
It's time to start paying attention to them because when Lou Lamoriello leaves, that means you can have fun again. And you can market your team in a different way than he'll allow you to. And players could speak candidly about things in ways that they couldn't because they knew no one was looking over their shoulder and having transcripts created to make sure that they're all saying the right things. John Collins taking a more active role in that team means that they understand inherently they need to connect with the local hockey community in ways that they have not. That's explicit from John. It's part of the mission now. Yeah. And, oh, by the way, they drafted probably the single most charismatic first overall pick that we've had.
It's amazing.
Like ever?
I know.
Maybe.
I know. He's fantastic.
The energy is good. The vibes are good. They're headed in the right direction. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they go about reinvigorating this franchise after quadrupling down on the same grade B players over and over and over again because they happened to make a conference final during COVID.
Yes. Okay. I kind of thought like these summer shows were going to start off and we just do like, 35 or 45 minutes. Yeah, I guess again. But it took you long to get on.
It was technical difficulties this time. We're going to keep it tight. Obviously, but then again, like people are at the beach. They're going to be there for a while. They want some noise in their ears that is going to be pleasing for long periods of time. And when they're done with that, they'll listen to us.
So, okay, go do your day. All right, we'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody.
Beat it. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN and ESPN. .com. Okay, we have to get to a couple of things here, Vic. One of them is, and I'm curious to see what you come up with here. If you've come up with anything, or maybe nothing, we'll see. The sheet is powered by FanDuel, as you all know, home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Vic, it hasn't been an easy day, but you did it. You got our man, Greg Wyshynski, aboard. You did it. You landed the plane. I'm happy for you. Anything from FanDuel for us today?
Yeah, as you know, it's a difficult one, and you went a pretty much entire show without talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's indirectly talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, geez.
In honor
we have
of
to?
So,
Best in the West? Leafs are in the West now?
No, but Mitch Marner
is Sharks in the first round again. Jamie Baker, Johan Garpenloff going to hit crossbars. Is that what we're talking about?
Mitch Marner is in the West now.
Okay.
Now we're looking at the Western Who will win the Western Conference, Jeff? Co-favorites Edmonton and Vegas.
Yeah.
Do you think the Vegas Golden Knights did enough to challenge the Edmonton Oilers? And to go with that, are the losses of Corey Perry, Connor Brown, Jeff Skinner, and not adding a goaltender too much?
Yeah. I mean, right now you have to look at Vegas and say that they're probably the odds on. I still don't know why Colorado continues. And I love Colorado. And until they flamed out again, I was like, oh yeah, Colorado can win the Stanley Cup this year. Like, how many years in a row are we going to keep saying this? Like, they may just be that one team that we looked at and said, they're awesome. They're going to win a bunch of Stanley Cups, and they end up winning one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Vic, didn't you get that feeling that when you saw them win that cup, because they were like dominating teams and looked so good? Didn't you say like, wow, we're looking at the next Penguins here. Like, they're going to rip off like 3 cups in 4 years or 4 cups in 6 years. Like, this is a team that's going to be around winning cups for a while. They've won 1. And we keep saying that they're cup contenders. Maybe we should temper our expectations there. I still want to see what Dallas does with Jason Robertson, either re-sign or trade. And if trade, what ends up coming back, I would imagine something to help the blue line. I got to look at this whole thing, even though Petrangelo's gone, Haig is gone, Waugh is gone. I would still look at the Vegas Golden Knights until we see what Edmonton does with their goaltending and say, I'll pick Vegas to win the Western Conference. If you're asking me today, July 7th.
And I am.
Yeah, and you are. So I would take Vegas right now. Where's all the disrespect for the Winnipeg Jets? Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Nothing on the Jets, man.
Because, now they lost Ehlers.
Yep.
Nobody trusts Hellbuck, I guess. I don't know. Like, have you seen a fall from grace bigger than that? Like, he didn't even get picked in the first 6 for the Team USA. The one guy won a Hart Trophy, won the Vezina. He didn't even get picked.
And Jake Ottinger's going, that's right, I'm going to be the guy. Going to be the guy. Okay, listen, on that, we should probably wrap things up. Again, look for an announcement tomorrow out of Penn State about Gavin McKenna. That is a major story. So we'll watch for that. And this program will be back. Like, our schedule is going to be kind of weird. So no show tomorrow, but we're back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we're going to 2 days a week, and we'll get a schedule for you through the end of July, and then we'll see what happens for August. But we are staying on the air. And listen, if there's like a big newsy day and then we have to be on to cover it, like, we'll be on. Like, don't worry about it. It'll happen and we'll cover it. Thanks again, as always, for being part of it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for interacting in the chat. We had some chat issues that we're going to solve for a Wednesday, not being able to get some chat comments on the screen while the show was going on, something we've been planning to do and do more of, completely ripping off Morning Cup of Hockey, but fuck, I figure I stole their producer. I'll steal their ideas too. So we'll look to do more of that throughout the summer. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of it. Thanks for listening. Hit the likes, hit the follows. That's our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, and follow the sheet, Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day. This program returns on Wednesday. Got it? Good. Enjoy the summer. Back Wednesday. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.